everyone, and welcome to your favorite YouTube series, and our favorite YouTube series too. I'm not gonna lie, this is literally my favorite thing to watch. Is everyone else talking, not me? But anyways, still my favorite. We're on episode number 23, if you can believe that, of Not Another Demo. As you know, Not Another Demo is our chance of having a real conversation with a vendor about what they do, what problems they solve, maybe what sets them apart from competitors in the industry. And we're super excited. Of course, I've got Aaron and Lloyd with me today, so we are sans Anthony today, but the three of us are going to handle it in his absence.
We're wishing him well because he got injured doing outdoor stuff. Sven, he broke his ankle climbing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Young people like to do young people things, and I don't do any climbing anymore, except in and out of bed. And I could break an ankle doing that sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. So we are really happy this week to have with us Sven Ruppert from JFrog, and we are. I have to do this. We are going to jump into the DevOps swamp with JFrog today. So
you did that on purpose, right?
Jumping did that in for Anthony because he loves the JFrog. So so Sven, I'm gonna just have you introduce yourself, introduce us to JFrog, because I think you guys are a newer company, so maybe some folks are not familiar with what you're doing. And then let's start with maybe telling us a little bit about what sets you guys apart from some of the other companies in that space.
Okay, so well, I'm Sven. I'm from Germany, and I joined JFrog a little bit over a year ago as developer advocate. And there I'm focusing on the security part there in the product area, what JFrog has. JFrog itself is originally from Israel, Tel Aviv, and Netanya, but Israel, and they have now headquarters in different countries and in US, Sunnyvale. Last year we had our IPO, so since this we have all this attention with all these new rules and new ways to do things,
new regulations too, right?
Yeah. So it's
more people to report to.
Yeah. Oh well, no, we are quite flat in the hierarchy, so that's really cool. And well, still some kind of agile. So it's the company itself, I think it's over 10 years old or so. I don't know exactly. So, okay. But it's not just a startup from the last 2 years, okay. Definitely. So there's a history, and they're focusing since the beginning on the developer part. So what the developer needs, what's the developer like. They came from the field of binary management. So the most people know it from Artifactory. It's this binary repository. And yeah, that's the root where everything is coming from. And then slowly the functionality was increasing with how to distribute this stuff and how to make it secure and how to build this stuff and so on. But the core is Artifactory, the binary manager. That's it. Well,
all right, let's just jump right in, because this is a
Aaron's
topic.
World,
I am a former, well, I guess I'm not a former web developer, because I still code on the side because I have to stay up on secure coding practices, because that's one of the work streams that I manage in my day job. We're actually about to start a new secure software development, too many letters, secure software development lifecycle maturity, right? Because my organization, we're big enough. We actually have 2 different development teams, one on the medical side and one on the insurance side. So one of the struggles that we have as we try and mature this process is the balance of, the continuous innovation, continuous delivery, that CI/CD pipeline, balancing that with security requirements, right? So 3 or 4 years ago, we had, we implemented SAS tools, static application
Mm.
scanning tools, and then, dynamic application scanning tools. We quickly discovered that the SAS part worked well after you matured and got your false positives out in your code. But one of the struggles that we had was around dynamic application scanning and how,
Yeah.
the development teams, as you know, especially the Artifactory space, they want to crank out stuff all the time, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of time to do complex testing, secure coding testing. So what are you
Okay.
seeing right now in the DevSecOps space that's kind of trying to address that? Is that something that you can do with a solution like yours, or is it a combination of things?
Well, let's say, so if the most people, if they start with this, they need something that's giving the best benefits in the beginning. Huh? So what are the low-hanging fruits? And mostly if people start thinking about security and reading a bit and all this stuff, they got a lot of this acronyms, terms, short word, whatever constellations. And the security field, as a lot of other fields, has an buzzword inflation. It's a German term, so word by word translate, but it's more, we're getting more and more buzzwords. And sometimes it's way easier if you're going a little bit back to the roots and think about what is the core you're doing, what is just technical costs, how to avoid things that are just here because they are cool, but you're not earning money with it. Huh? So, and if you start simplifying things, and the main thing is complicated things to explain complicated is easy, but explain complicated things in easy words is, damn, this is really hard, because then you need to understand it exactly in all details. So means that making security simple is biggest goal you should have, so that everybody in your team is able to follow, is able to do his part of the job. And simplifying means as well that you split the responsibility. So who's responsible for the DOS part? Who's responsible for the static part? Who's responsible for whatever? So this is sometimes not really clear. So if you're looking a little bit in the past, we have this devs and ops, and what we learned is that this merging is a good thing. Huh? So that the whole team is responsible for all this stuff. But on the other side, what we learned is now if you have these DevOps teams, not every dev is an ops specialist. He needs to know exactly what he needs for his daily job to be efficient. And the same with security. So if you're going to the SAS part or DAS part or whatever, you have to make sure that the general awareness of this topic security is everywhere, in every part of your tool chain or in your production line. But some people are focusing on the dynamic application scanning. So what we are doing with JFrog is we are focusing on the, let's say, biggest part of it, but not of the dynamic part. Why is this dynamic application security testing? Why is this just a tiny part compared to the rest? So if you look at the whole tech stack, and what are you doing as a developer? You have always this decision make or buy. So I need to print a PDF. Should I implement a PDF library, or should I get it as a PDF? Libraries. So a library, third-party dependency. And security, for me personally, security includes vulnerabilities and compliance issues. So this is both can be poison for your business. Vulnerabilities, yeah, it's just a compromised system. Compliance is just the right license at the wrong place, can kill your business as well. So this is something that most people are forgetting, that compliance is part as well. So going back to the developer, what's he doing? He has always his time to market and make or buy. So the economy part of the company is thinking about, there's this new use case must be pushed to production as fast as possible because we want to write a bill. Okay, this is the main thing. And we as a developer, we are doing exactly the same. So there is a requirement and we must push it as fast as possible to production. And if you have a vulnerability and you have to react, this is time to market. As fast as possible, it must change in production. There's a requirement, this vulnerability. So whatever vulnerability, if you're finding it on static analysis or during the runtime or whatever. On the other side, if you're checking the dependency part and all tech layers, the most projects I saw is that the dependency part is by far the biggest part of an application. So if you're focusing on the static stuff, on the dependencies and making sure that this is secure, you have the low-hanging fruit, you have the biggest part of the system already checked, and this should be done there. And this is an easy part because the mathematics behind is easier. And then you can focus on the dynamic application scanning stuff. But this is not really solved from the mathematical point of view, from the technical point of view, and so on. But whatever technique you're using, I think you should focus on quality, because quality will lead you to a better way to deal with security or vulnerabilities or with all this stuff. And why? Because you're just going over test-driven development, and this is low-hanging fruit for everything. So if you're focusing on quality and then adding the term security in the whole pipeline and focusing on the biggest parts, you're on a good way. And all this AI stuff and all this dynamic scanning, for me personally, is a tiny part in the whole tech stack. And this is why I always would say, have an eye on this dynamic application scanning stuff. Make sure that you have no false positive stuff, but make sure that this is not the leading one, because this is, it's not so strong. It will be strong over the next 10 or 15 years, and it will be amazing what we will get with AI and machine learning and all this stuff. But right now, my personal feeling is it isn't at on, and it's not the main thing you should focus on. And it's just, yeah, so it has the same rules. So if you find something, you must be fast again, you must change it as fast as possible, you must be mutable, you must be able to recreate the same instance, to analyze it without destroying your production, and all this stuff. So you have the same mechanics. And for me personally, my personal point of view is that the dynamic application security part isn't good at on, but it shouldn't be the backbone. That's at least what I would suggest.
Now,
so,
when you talk,
okay, so hang on. So you had a phrase in there that I have to capture. You said, what was it? Buzzword something? You said it was a German term. Buzzword something.
Buzzword inflation. So
Buzzword
in inflation in terms of,
we're gonna bring that here. Because and you heard Aaron a couple of times. It's one of our rules on Not Another Demo. We don't allow acronyms because we get into that vegetable soup mix of, oh wait, I'm going to use the new word, buzzword inflation, which we want to stay away from. Totally love that, hashtagging that one on this episode. So okay. Yeah, I guess Aaron, I'll throw it back over to you, because I know we've had some SaaS and DaaS conversations. Like, what was your take on that part of the conversation?
I'd like to dig in a little bit more, like when you talk about quality, right? So I am in agreement with you that DAST has a long ways to go, right? Because AI isn't where it needs to be. You still need a lot of manpower, right? Putting in, the checks in the logic in the DAST tool to make it find the vulnerabilities you're looking for, right? So there's a big FTE left on that. You need a QA analyst or a business analyst that knows your application, that can say check for X, Y, and Z, right? That's the biggest problem with implementing a DAST, right? Is understanding that it's going to need a lot of care and feeding, as opposed to a static application scanning tool. I wanted to know a little bit more about what you mean by like quality. When you talked a little bit about shift left, shift left, sorry, before we started recording. Are you seeing that most if I'm understanding you right, you're saying that most of the vulnerabilities that you're finding in a solution like JFrog are like bad binaries coming in, you're beginning to your setup tools, right? So your open source libraries, you mentioned like as a developer, do I want to create my own PDF converter? So Matt, for you and Lloyd, there are times where you have a form, right? And you put in the information on the form, and then you need to do two things with it. You need to send that data to the database, but you also have to print and make it printable, right? So the stuff that Sven talked about, you need to be able to print out a copy. So there's two ways to do this, right? You can do, well, actually three. One, you can just roll the dice, right? And see what Windows or Mac does when you print it. You can create you can make CSS tweaks, cascading style sheets, tweaks to make it look a certain way, or 8 out of 10 times, like Sven is saying, the developer is just going to go out and get a plugin or a library that creates that. So Sven, are you seeing that more vulnerabilities are coming into your custom web applications from like open source libraries?
Well, let's have a little bit more detailed view on this one, because I don't want to blame web apps or different technologies. So we all know this SolarWinds hack. Huh? So we got it. Okay, this Fire company that got their tool stack, broke to this SolarWinds company. And what happened here, the main thing is that the attack was not against the final target, the attack was against the supply chain. And this is a new way of attacking system. Because if you're getting a binary and you have a fingerprint and you're validating and it's coming from the producer and you say, oh, this fingerprint, that's fine. And you're just taking this binary and trust it. Yeah, it happened. Exactly this happened. Because the attack was against the CI environment from this company, and with every build, they produce compromised binaries by themselves. So, oh my God. So how to get rid of this one, how to make sure that this will not happen for you. So this is the question. So what is static and dynamic for you? Are you looking at the place that you're a producer and pushing stuff away, or you're focusing on the part I'm grabbing from the market and using it by myself? So these are different things. If you're focusing on just on the part I'm grabbing stuff from outside into my production and make sure that nothing is coming in over this way, okay, then you need to understand over all tech layers, the dependency management systems. And if you have this metadata and this binaries and the knowledge about all known vulnerabilities, you're focusing on 80 or 90% of your whole stack already. Damn, that's good. What you need is to go back to your previous question about quality. If you're dealing with vulnerabilities, I'm not talking about compliance issues, because there's a big difference. So with vulnerabilities, you have just between, to kill a vulnerability is mostly creating a new composition of the same word or of different versions of the same elements. Okay, so you have version A and it must be version B, but it's the same library. So if you're focusing on this part, a good test coverage will help you, because you can just create a new composition of versions, test it, give it to production. Perfect. Time to market, short, okay? Don't do all this stuff. If you're thinking about, should I grab a dependency, open source or not? I love open source because a lot of people can analyze it instead of something that's closed. But if you think about creating PDF by myself or grabbing someone, I would trust this guy that has done it a few times and learned his lesson already. But a few of us, I mean developers, tend to say, hey, I'm great, I'm a senior, I can do everything. And this is a challenge if you're talking about, yeah, doing stuff by ourselves. Oh yeah, just a PDF. I just need this A and B, and they not even read the spec, what PDF is including. So nearly nobody knows that PDF can include JavaScript that's executed. Huh? So all this stuff. So it means that don't underestimate the effort, not only from the economic point of view, but from the complexity and the best practices. It's the same with polyglot systems. So with this microservice stuff and serverless and whatever, what we are thinking is we're thinking of writing new instead of maintaining. This is nice, and this is perfect if you want to try out stuff. I learned Java or started working with Java in 1996. If I would start now with Go, I would be just a junior, just bloody junior. But I have to say to myself, okay, now I'm a junior, and I would need advice for people that maybe just half of the age of mine, but working 5 years in Go, and I just started. And this is a challenge, that's a social challenge in companies, and this is a huge security risk. So security is not only the dependency, security is how to deal with your own ego, with your behavior, with your teammates and all this stuff. This is a different part of security. So this polyglot world will give us different challenges of hidden technologies, just dependencies, grabbing stuff in. It will give us a challenge that I'm not a senior anymore, I have to learn again. It gives us a challenge how to deal with different personalities and how to do this one. And quality is mostly a good thing. Again, the most of this parts I just mentioned. Why? If you have a good test coverage, I'm not saying what is a good test coverage. I'm just saying you have a good test coverage, okay? And the term good, we have to have a look on. But if you have a good test coverage, it doesn't depend if I'm doing a change in the system on Monday after I had a strong weekend, on Wednesday, and I'm just exhausted on Friday and I'm just out on the weekend already. Huh? Or if I'm happy at home or not, or social challenges, whatever, I'm always delivering the same quality. And this is the change. The machine can deliver always the same quality. I'm a human. I'm not able to do it, but the machine can help me. And if I have a predictable quality, then I know the duration and so on and so on. Okay, so now the question, what's a good test coverage? And then we can go back to the security part and static or non-static testing. What's a good test coverage? Most people start with line coverage. Line coverage is great, yeah, but it's just a it's not strong. Okay, it's definitely not strong. Even if you have branch coverage, it's not strong. So what other test techniques you have? And then people coming, oh yeah, we have property-based testing. And say, oh, okay, property-based testing. Can you explain me the random generator that is used to create the statistic significant amount of test points fits to your problem? Are you able to verify that this random generator fits to your problem? Yes or no? And the most developers would say, I'm taking the random generator that's part of this tool. Great, perfect. I have no clue what I'm doing, but I have test coverage. I would prefer something very traditional from the 70s, boring stuff, mutation testing. Everything is atomic, mathematical, easy, implementing is straightforward, okay? And then I have a really strong test coverage. And now going back to this dynamic or the static testing. Static testing is an easy mathematic. It's a straightforward algorithm. You can handle it. And you can validate that this is at least a solid base. And the dynamic part, this is on top. Yeah, but with a good quality and a good process, you eliminate human stuff, you eliminate that's. So I don't know how to explain it, but you're working with quality against a lot of variables you have inside this system and make sure that that's predictable. And predictable is perfect for security. Yeah?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Do you see situations where, especially we'll use your junior developer use case, are you seeing that it's better to teach them code, like getting to them early and saying secure coding practices, like, cleanse your inputs, like you said, think about your test, your test coverage differently. It's probably easier to implement that with a junior developer. How do you propose doing that, like you said, with a senior developer who's like, I've been doing this forever, I started coding before you were alive, kind of thing, where that's working against security because you need them to learn new things, because especially with code, there's new types of attack scripts every single day.
Yeah. So let's say, well, I had this situation in one company. I was head of R&D of a company here in Germany, and it was leading a team. And there was a product, and it was over 10 years old. It was transformed from PHP to Java over 15 years ago or so, something like that. So we had way more than 1 million lines of code. And this the challenge was that this team was nearly, they are all over 60 sometimes. So a huge amount was just near to be retired. Okay. And they had a lot of experience, and this was the biggest border. So this was the biggest challenge, and they recruited just from the university. So you had exactly this thing. So someone you can form or you can train, and on the other side, just this very, very, I don't know how to say it polite, but these people that are long in this field, that are quite old, and have a very
stubborn.
way.
It's okay to say stubborn.
Yeah, so as if you're not a native speaker, you must be careful what you're saying. So the main thing is that here this challenge was how to motivate them to change something in their life, because the old one didn't want to change something. They just want to get the last 5 years to be retired. They never want to touch it anymore, and they just don't care about the company because they are retired in 4, 5, 6 years. And what with the company happens, they just don't care. The young one says, oh, I'm learning from the old one, and I will do exactly what they're doing because they have experience and all this stuff. And the young one was not strong enough to say something against the old one because they know the CEO, they are long in the company and all this stuff. So social engineering was really a disaster.
They were starting to not only make it difficult to have those, hey, should we think about doing it a different way, but you probably run into where they're picking up bad habits, right?
Yeah, so they're just doing the same stuff as the old one, and this was a change. This was really a disaster. And so with this, they used old practices. It was not allowed to use new practices. Yeah, so they stuck on old behavior, and this learning stuff. This is something. So what you need in this case is you need a metric that is easy to understand from the developer up to the C-level. And it must be one metric that's exactly the same, so the same number, but you can use it on a green and red slide for the C-level and in numbers for the developer. So one thing everybody's working against. And you need some behavior or some characteristics of this number must be, if you have this typical static analyzer and you have 100,000 defects and you're working 1 month and then you kill 10,000 defects, it's a lot, but in the statistic you see nothing. People are just bored and stop working against it. And the same with security. So if you have all this stuff, so you need something with an exponential growing. So this is why I love this mutation testing. You start with a few tests, but in the beginning you have an exponential grow of mutation test coverage, and then it's going slow and slow, but then you are over 80%. And this behavior, this curve, is very motivating for the team. And you're just discussing about this number. You're not discussing about what should you do or your behavior or whatever. If you just be able to reduce the discussion to discuss about numbers, so many mutations means we have this amount of risk in our application. We're expecting so many changes. Risk and changes are not fitting together. We need a strategic thing. And then you start implementing this, sneaking in with security stuff. For example, security payload injection testing. So talking about dynamic or static security stuff, if you are writing JUnit tests And inside this test, you're grabbing from a repository your binaries, your compromised binaries, and you're feeding your program. Is this a dynamic test or static test for you? Now we can discuss endless if this is dynamic or static. But in the end, what I want to say is you focus on scanning everything that's in, making sure that's clean, and making sure with quality that you're just discussing about improving quality. There is no discussion about left or right, because quality is something you're not discussing. You just need to go through quality. If you're old or young, quality is timeless, okay? Security is this black magic thing. And then you have to go step by step. If you have a very efficient dependency management, you can start implementing this, oh, we have to change versions. And then later, nobody is asking why we are changing versions, because you're used to change versions. You're flexible, you're agile again. But the discussion is first about we are improving quality. We want to have more use cases for the customer. And in the end, you just changing dependencies, not only for functionality, but you start changing dependencies against vulnerabilities. There's one thing, we're talking about vulnerabilities, but if you have compliance stuff, you have a different behavior. If you have vulnerabilities, you need just a new version of the same library. With compliance, you need a semantic equal implementation because you need a semantic equal replacement. You can't change the version. You have to change the dependency itself. And if you're running in this one, then you need a good test coverage to make sure that the completely independent, different implementation is doing exactly the same, okay? So you can start discussing about left and right and all this stuff, but if you're going over the quality thing and start being agile with your dependency management, you have the biggest part, and you're going against vulnerabilities and compliance issues. And then you can start adding, oh, we have a good test coverage. Now I want to test if something is not working as expected, and feeding your system with compromised binaries. So the secure payload testing is the first step. I give you a manipulated image. Is my application working well? No, it's crashing. Or, oh shit, that's happening this or that. And then I'm start writing security tests, but it's under the hood of quality. So it's just a different way of wording, and it's a different way of being afraid of doing something. If I say make a security test, oh shit, how to do it? I have no idea, never done it. If I say, hey, test if this stuff is running with these binaries I'm providing, yeah, we'll do. This is easy.
So Aaron, I feel like whenever we get into these DevSecOps conversations, that it's almost more of a, like the issues are almost more of a people and process issue than they are a solution issue, right? I think there's a lot of what we were talking about here. It's always fascinating to me when we, I think sometimes we get so ingrained in looking for, the next tool or the solution or, something that's going to help us fix whatever it is that's going on from a security standpoint, when we never take that step back to look at people and process and communication and all of that stuff, right?
Well,
Yeah,
I
we're
think
humans.
you're going to see I think you're going to see some of that change now that the how of the SolarWinds attack, and even the Microsoft Exchange Server attack, right? Because one of the things that Sven talked to that, I'm going to have to go back to developers and think about. So as a former developer, we have code checks, right? So code check means it's like Sven talked about. I created this chunk of code. It's my section of the web application, right? If you have a mature software development, not even talking security, if you just have a secure software development lifecycle, then that code is getting peer reviewed, right? So that is one thing that the insurance side does very well. It's going to make sound like the hospital side doesn't. The insurance side has been doing it way longer than the hospital side. So let me put that out there. So they have matured that. So I have Lloyd is my fellow developer. He's going in, he's looking at this code, right? For two things. It's the structure, right? For the test coverage that Sven talks about. But the other thing that we're going to have to train developers to do is maybe look for suspicious code. And when I say suspicious code, not like for code injection, but for your critical software. Why is this piece of software doing this, right? And you're not doing it in a accusatory way, right? It's that collaboration part. Hey, I see that you're sending this to this spot. Is that the intended behavior? Or like Sven says, do we rethink how we're doing unit tests to be able to account for that, right? So if you do that properly and you get that quality like Sven talks about, in theory, you don't need to use a DAS tool, right? And then you can push code quicker. But that's going to require a fundamental shift for like developers, period, and even development managers, right? Because you're pushing more knowledge and more scrutiny and everything else at the beginning of your software development lifecycle. And then the bonus part of it, like Sven talks about, is you have quality, you're less apt to have issues later. You're still going to do your penetration testing after your app goes live, right? But it's a new challenge. Do you need DAS tools at all anymore, right? Especially because it's not to the AI that it needs, because for some people that aren't proficient or may not know a lot about DevSecOps is your DAS tool, you're basically going in and your quality assurance analyst is saying, yep, it's supposed to be able to give you this information. But they kind of think also like a hacker. If I change this one number, right, I'm sending Lloyd. Lloyd is user 123. I'm sending a request back user 123. And then when you're doing your regular testing, like the unit testing that Sven talks about, it's going to be okay, right? Because, hey, I put in this, my expected data return is what it's supposed to be. But like with a DAS tool is emulating a pen tester, that person's going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, am I getting Matt's information back? Yes, I'm getting Matt. That's bad. That's something that, like Sven talked about, we need to go back and address. But if we change that mentality and think about, repositories differently and coding differently at the beginning, then down the road until, DAS tools get, like he said, super intelligent, then you really don't need that stuff. And that's a fundamental shift in developer thinking. Wouldn't you agree, Sven?
Is he right about that, Sven?
Yeah, a few tiny details maybe we should discuss about. Tiny details.
Please fix his details.
No, I don't want to fix. I just want to ask if I understood it right, or how to say it. No, it's more or less like, don't forget that if you're talking about this provider that will give you information about vulnerabilities that are the known vulnerabilities, okay? These are not the unknown vulnerabilities. And this is why Dust is good as addition, because the amount of known vulnerabilities is way bigger than the amount of unknown vulnerabilities. It's just a prediction. I don't know if it's really right. But I'm guessing over the years.
That's a pretty safe guess.
Yeah, but so and if I have the quick win, I should focus on the known vulnerabilities to verify, because I can verify this. What I mentioned was, now you know exactly what to do. You have an atomic operation. You can do it in a certain amount of time. You know you need so much time to do this one. For dynamic application or security testing, you need exponential amount of time with double amount of components, okay? Because you have
Which
this
you
full
don't
complexity.
have in a CI/CD lifecycle.
So, and now the question is, how you split up all the responsibilities. For a developer, I think it's very important that in his daily life, he will get his information as early as possible. Like, I'm in my IDE and I have a plugin, and if I'm adding a dependency, I will just get the list of non-vulnerabilities. The biggest challenge here is people are seeing the CVSS as
scores. Yep.
Scores.
Vulnerability scores. Yep.
Exactly. And this vulnerability scores, this is just a number, but nearly nobody knows okay, this number is built of these components, and you have this basic one, you have this temporal one. What is a thing that temporal is increasing or decreasing? Can temporal increase the score, yes or no? And then you have this environmental score, so or metric, and how to adjust this. So it's this transformation from this generic number to the number that fits to my system. So people are not doing it. They're adjusting CVSS number, whatever is the risk. It's not. It's a generic number, and then you have to transform it. So with CVSS,
Probability.
for example, 3.
Probability.
Yeah.
Matt, for you, I understood completely what Sven said, but to translate it like Sven talks about is probability. Just because a score is 10 is how is that 10 in relation to your web application, right? Because if you're not doing anything, that 10 is a 1, right? But if your application was doing this, that 10 is critical. And it's not really fair to a developer to translate that risk, right? Because there are actually teams dedicated to doing that. So what Sven is saying is 100% correct. Not incorrect, 100% correct. Sorry.
Yeah, but so I think the good mixture is what we need with the tool stack, and make sure that everybody's just focusing on his part. And then I think you have a huge amount. There are two things that most companies are just ignoring. It's security by concept. So they're focusing on the DevOps part. So from I start coding until it's running in production, but security as concept is a very strong thing. It's like an algorithm. So if you have the wrong algorithm, you can tweak the technique, but a better algorithm will always beat. Yeah. And the other thing is that most people or companies or groups are focusing on checking the vulnerabilities of their product, what they're producing, but they're not checking their own infrastructure. So who scanned his Jenkins against non-vulnerabilities? Damn, this was a SolarWinds hack. Attack against Jenkins or against whatever CI system. So check your infrastructure, check your tools you're using. And at the same time, if you have something like Artifactory, this repository manager, and you're storing your Maven dependencies, Docker images, and all this stuff, why people are not storing the JDK there? This version has this JDK as runtime for this operating system. So why they're not? So they're storing everything, but they're not using generic repositories to save exactly everything from their production line. So in the same version that correlates to the version you're creating. So often I saw, yeah, we are developing on whatever JDK, for example, on Mac. Yeah, the customer's running it on Linux. Yeah, they have this JDK number, whatever build. They have an incident. Okay, can we reproduce? Yeah, we have the same main number of this JDK, but not the same build number. How to get it? Damn, that's it. So this is why
end of story. You can't investigate it anymore.
That's it. Well, damn. Be immutable of the whole production line and scan your whole production environment so as well, because not only your product must be secure, you must be secure as well. And well, yeah, I just say SolarWinds. Don't be the company that's
don't be the next SolarWinds.
Amazing what that particular situation has done to our entire industry, right? It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So Sven, we have just a couple of minutes left. I'm actually going to spin this all the way back around to the question that I normally ask, because we just had a very deep, thought-provoking conversation about DevOps. Tell us, if someone is interested in, building a better DevOps platform or doing more in this space, why would they come to you and to JFrog to discuss this? So tell us a little bit about JFrog.
Well, the best thing is you try it, and then I don't have to discuss with you, because then you will buy it immediately. So there's a free tier.
Go try it
and adjust. Yeah, and try it. So it's so easy. So if you want to see a little bit more how it's done, so the practical way and all this stuff, you can have a look on my YouTube channel or on the JFrog one. For example, I showed how to harden a web framework. an open source web framework, how it's done practically. And then look at this and check if this is a workflow that would fit in your production line, because it's just what you're doing every time. It's just a tiny addition. So you're not spending more time. You are not having additional processes and all this stuff. And this is one of the bigger things of JFrog. We can go on-prem, we can go in the cloud, and we can go hybrid with all of our tools. If you have this security scanner, we have the full impact graph over all tech layers, because with Artifactory, we are understanding all package manager. With this, we have all metadata. And then we can say, this jar is this web archive and this Docker image used for this Helm chart, and this is running there in production. Damn, that's good. So you have exactly what you need to revalidate the CVSS, the full impact graph, without technical borders. That's one thing. The other thing is that we are able to build, or if you're looking just at the security scanner X-ray, for example, we are not just breaking a build. We have the possibility, we are offering everything by a REST interface, okay? But we can start webhooks. And with this, we can build semi-automatic or completely automatic workflows. Say, whatever infrastructure you have, for example, auditing tool, and you need all this information in this auditing tool because the law required is, we are just sending this data to your auditing tool because we have a REST interface, we can start webhooks, we can just do it on the fly. And this is one thing that is very, very convenient. I can talk, I think, a little bit more about what you can do with repositories, how cool it is, how you can kill rebuilds because you're using virtual repositories and all this stuff. Way too much for this time. So if you want to know more, just ping me on Twitter, LinkedIn, ask me. I'm giving talks, workshops, whatever, or just subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would love it because I'm doing all this stuff. I'm doing all this stuff.
As a content creator, I can relate.
Yeah.
Yep. I can completely relate to that. I have a couple good episodes for educational, and you have those are like the 30 views, right? But you have something where you're going on a rant or something else, and then it gets 100 views, and you're like, but this is just my opinion. This other one is your company really could use it, right? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things for those of you that have gotten this far in the video, you will know that somewhere inside of this video was hidden an Easter egg. I think that's what they're called, right? Yes. For a chance to, there's 25 copies of the book Liquid Software that JFrog is offering for the first 25 people that find that Easter egg and get a hold of them on it. You don't have to give them any of your information or anything like that. Just get a free book. So we appreciate that. Like, subscribe, all the stuff that Sven just said about all of his stuff, do that with ours too. Because we got some pretty cool stuff as well, including this episode. Sven, thank you very much for, I continue to be enlightened by these conversations. So I really appreciate you being here with us. We will share all of your information in the details section of the YouTube video. And we'll see everyone for episode 24. Thanks, everybody.